Hey, World Civilizations class. Mr. Guilford with you.
And Mr. Lassiter here.
And we're going to present to you the rainbow.
You can't
You're
see
supposed
it.
to say it too.
Oh, yeah.
The rainbow of knowledge. That's what this video is going to be called. So this is, of course, a game, and you will vote on the winner of this game. But basically, what we're going to tell you today is the object of this game is to ask a question, and while the other person answers the question, the asker of the question must draw a picture of the question or answer that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
We'll try to move quickly. How many should we do out of each section? Like 2 out of each section? Or just all of them?
Maybe just do all of them. We'll go fast.
Okay. We'll try to go fast. That's going to make it hard to draw. That's okay, guys. Stick with us.
Yeah, the pictures are not that important.
Right.
The answers are important.
You drawing first?
I'll start drawing. So that means that I need to ask.
Yes.
So, Mr. Lassiter, what factors motivated European rulers to finance voyages of exploration?
Well, the first thing we talked about was that the earliest Western Europeans, when they started looking elsewhere, wanted to kind of find a way around the Ottoman Empire, so to speak. They wanted to, not just the Ottomans, it could have been anybody there, but they wanted to avoid the middleman. They had a desire for the riches of the old world, namely gold, ivory, especially spices. They wanted to spread Christianity and to gain recognition. So we can commonly sum these up into the 3 G's: gold, glory, and God.
All right. My drawing is of a turkey wearing a fez with his feet on an ottoman, and he's holding a bag of money, representing the riches of the Ottoman Turks.
Oh, Turks. I get it.
Yeah, the Turks.
I thought you were going with the Columbian Exchange there. I thought it was.
Oh yeah, well not the turkeys from the Columbian Exchange, but the turkeys with their feet up on a stool.
All right, let's do this. Next question.
All right, next question.
Oh, what factors have you guys? Can you tell that we were making this game up as we go?
Yep.
What factors enabled Europeans to undertake voyages of exploration?
Well, so there are a couple of different factors. One is like what allowed them to actually do this, and the main ones are new technologies, including stuff like lateen sails and the compass, the astrolabe. And these are all things that they inherit from Arabian cultures. Also, a new type of ship, the caravel, allows for them to cross the ocean. Yeah, that's about it, I guess.
All right. I've drawn a caravel with a lateen sail and a kind of compass. All right.
All right.
Next.
Why did Europeans want a water route to Asia?
Well, why did they want a water route to Asia? Because going over land was expensive. It was costly. Usually you had to go through middlemen. And what they wanted in Asia were the riches of Asia. Namely, spices were the big thing. And if you remember from our lesson on spices, where we tasted all the different types, those mainly came from Southeast Asia or South Asia, India. And so a water route to Asia would make the transportation of these goods to Europe faster and would also cut out the middlemen. So European nations could make all the money off of it.
Here we have, guys, a sad person going over land to all the riches of Asia. And that is opposed to a happy person going via the water route to all of the riches, because that's much easier.
All right, let's do this.
Very advanced.
So next we're going to move on to Portuguese exploration. And let me ask you this. What did Portugal get out of exploring and establishing trading posts around the coast of Africa?
I would say that it's 3 big things. It's access to the riches of Africa. These are especially gold and ivory. And later, unfortunately, slaves also are treated as a kind of riches to be gotten from Africa. They also hope to spread Christianity to kingdoms in sub-Saharan Africa. One important one is the Congo. And lastly, they also, well, on top of that, they were also able to set up a trade route to Asia. And by setting up ports and stuff along the coast of Africa, it helped them to eventually get to India.
You done?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I have drawn Portugal here and all the port cities on the continent of Africa.
Can I use the blue marker? This one's kind of dying.
Yeah. Excuses.
All right. So moving on. Oh, we can just trade because that one's crappy. But so anyway, let's talk about Portugal some more. What did Portugal get out of exploring and establishing trading posts around the... Oh, wait, we already did that one. Why did the Spanish send explorers to the west and not around Africa?
Well, the Spanish wanted to go around Africa. That was seen as the quickest way. They didn't really know what was going to be west. But they had fought a war with the Portuguese and had lost. So the Portuguese in this treaty banned the Spanish from exploring or going around the African coast. And so they needed to look westward. On top of that, Christopher Columbus believed the world was much smaller than it actually was. And so he convinces Ferdinand and Isabella that sailing west was logical and would actually be faster than sailing around the coast of Africa. Although they never actually reached Asia that way until much, much later when Magellan sails around the world.
All right. There's Portugal blocking Spain from going around Africa, and over there is a tiny world with Columbus trying to sail around it, which is not how the world actually was.
Certainly not. All right, next question. What was the Treaty of Tortillas, and what does it show about European attitudes?
The Treaty of Tortillas was a treaty signed by Spain and Portugal just after Columbus discovered America. And basically, they got together and the Pope agreed to split up the world between Portugal in the east and Spain in the west. So Spain got most of the New World, and Portugal got most of the Old World. And this basically shows that the Christians believe that they have the right to conquer and control all the rest of the world. It split the entire non-Christian world up between Spain and Portugal. So they don't really respect what these other cultures are doing and basically see themselves as being entitled to conquer the entire world.
All right, excellent. I have drawn another map of the world because it's super easy. And then you got the Tordesillas line here. And then on this side, you got Portugal. And on this side, it belonged to Spain.
All right. Let's see. What were the defining characteristics of the Aztec, Maya, and Inca?
So I don't think we'll get to every one of them here, but just to start a list, the Aztec, Maya, and Inca are all advanced civilizations in the Americas. The Aztec and Maya are found in Mesoamerica, or the area of Mexico and Central America, whereas the Inca were in South America. All being advanced civilizations, I'll kind of talk to you a little bit about each one. The Aztecs were known for farming on chinapas, or kind of floating gardens that they created. They had big, large temples, and they ruled by military force. Basically, they used their military to conquer the areas around them. And then they would practice, maybe what they're most infamous for, practice human sacrifice fairly regularly. The Maya are known for their astronomy, their mathematics, and their kind of brilliant step pyramids. And so they're located also in Mesoamerica. The Inca was another of the strong groups. The Inca and the Aztecs are going to be the ones that are conquered by the Spanish. So the Inca ruled by force like the Aztecs did, but they were also known for their very highly developed road building throughout the Andes Mountains of South America. They also did practice some human sacrifice, but maybe not quite as brutal or as regular as the Aztecs. That's it. Oh, that's a good one.
Here we've got a Jaguar Warrior, which was a warrior that specialized in capturing people for the Aztecs to sacrifice. One of the famous Mayan pyramids based on El Castillo, and then Rhodes going through the mountains for the Inca.
Mr. Lasser's favorite thing, road building.
Road building is the best.
It is so cool.
All right, what do we got now? My turn, right?
Mm-hmm. We'll go for about 5 more minutes, and then we'll stop and do another video.
Okay. So I guess you're going to ask me now what factors
That's
the
right. That's how it
technological
goes.
advantage of Europeans over the Americans.
So what factors, Mr. Guilford, help to explain the technological advantage of Europeans over the Americans?
I would say that there are many, but we'll just talk about a couple of the biggest ones. One is that the American civilizations are highly isolated from most other civilizations in the world, and even from each other. So whereas European civilization was able to benefit a lot from ideas from Asia and China, and we see this even up to the period of exploration where they get stuff like the compass and lateen sails from their neighbors, the Native American civilizations couldn't borrow ideas. That means they had to invent everything themselves, which takes a long time. Also, civilization didn't really even get started until 3,000 years later in America than it did in Eurasia. And last of all, the Americans didn't really have access to a lot of useful species when they first got started. They had some good plants like potatoes and corn, but in terms of animals that they could use to domesticate, all they had were llamas and dogs and turkeys and guinea pigs. And those, while they might seem useful, are really nothing compared to the stuff that European and Asian civilizations had, like horses and pigs and cows and sheep and goats and donkeys, and the list goes on and on. But so those are 3 big disadvantages that the Americans had against the Europeans.
All right. I drew no horses. They farmed later, and guns, germs, and steel. It's pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's a good musket.
Thank you.
All right, so what factors... What factors helped the Spanish to overthrow the Aztec and the Inca?
Where are we at? Oh, yeah. So that kind of goes with some of the things we were talking about there. Well, the largest factor in this was probably disease. Up to 95% of Native Americans were wiped out by European diseases that were brought over. In addition, the Aztec and Inca ruled their territory and the people around them mainly through brute military force. And so when the Spaniards came over and were going to attempt to overthrow these people, they had willing allies already. All these little tribes that had been conquered by the Aztecs were like, sure, yeah, we'll help you defeat these people. And all the little tribes that had been conquered by the Inca were like, yeah, sure, we'll help you defeat these people. And so they have some allies in this fight. But the last and probably most important was the superior weapons and technology of the Spanish. So other than the fact that just these Aztec and Inca are already kind of in turmoil from all this disease and infighting, Spaniards come with their cannons and their guns and riding on the backs of these giant hoofed monsters known as horses. They're able to kind of roll over these already weakened societies.
All right, so that's the Native Americans dying on the right. And what you've got is a European guy wearing a helmet with a gun and also sneezing on the dead person and being helped by a Native American.
Right. It looks almost like he's carrying a cross, too.
Oh, yeah.
So somehow representative of forced conversion?
Yes, also representing the destruction of culture as well as of the population.
Very good.
Dang. Didn't even mean
Such
to do
symbolism. All right. So we're going to stop part 1 of the video here, should we? Or should we just keep going?
I don't know.
Let's go to absolutism.
Okay.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What was the Columbian Exchange, and how did it affect the populations of Europe and the Americas?
All right. Let's talk first about what the Columbian Exchange is not. It is not a trade route. The Columbian Exchange is not like Americans bringing over a bunch of potatoes to Europe and selling the potatoes in exchange for horses. It's not what it is. I think the most precise definition of the Columbian Exchange you can give is that it's the biological homogenization of the eastern and western hemispheres. That is, lots of important species of plants and animals And diseases from one part of the world are now transferring over to another part of the world, and vice versa. And they're all getting established on each side of the Atlantic Ocean. So on one side of the Atlantic Ocean, on the Americas, you're seeing species like horses and wheat and sheep and cows, and also species like smallpox establishing themselves in the Americas. And on vice versa, you're seeing species like the potato and the turkey and corn and syphilis being established over in Europe. So it's species from two sides of the ocean crossing over and getting established on each side of the ocean.
Oh, I wasn't even done drawing yet. You got anything else to say?
Um,
How do you draw a potato?
Potato's just like a lump. But so the effects of the Columbian Exchange are also really big. And that is basically everybody has better stuff on each side. So, well, except for smallpox, which is, I guess, a better disease if the purpose of a disease is to kill people. But so the Europeans get better crops like the potatoes, and the Americans get better animals like cows and horses.
There's a cow or a horse, whatever you'd like it to be. Germs and guns. And then potatoes and turkeys going back the other direction.
Those are potatoes. That's what potatoes.
It's not a trade route.
Not a trade route. Okay. Describe the triangular system of trade that Europeans set up in the Atlantic Ocean.
Gladly. So the triangular trade system that we normally say, the Atlantic Triangle Trade or the Atlantic Circuit, consisted really of three different trade routes. And here we're actually talking about real trade routes, right? So the first trade route was that we can kind of think about is Europe to Africa. European goods such as guns, ammunition, textiles, cloth, clothing, things like that were sent to Africa and usually traded in exchange for goods that were in Africa. So in the early years of Portuguese trading, it would have been something like gold and ivory. But as time went on, the major trade in the region was slaves. And so that was the first route, European goods going from Europe to Africa. The next one we call the Middle Passage, and that is the trade of the goods that come from Africa that are going to the Americas. And these were almost entirely slaves that were transported in horrendous conditions aboard ships specially modified to move slaves. To come and work in the Americas, either in the Caribbean or in South America, places like Brazil, or in the British colonies of the Americas. And they would usually work on sugar, tobacco, or cotton plantations. But that's the Middle Passage from Africa to the New World. And then, of course, once these slaves toiled in the fields of the Americas, the raw materials that were produced in the Americas, now whether that was lumber that was being sent back, or whether it was raw sugar, or if it was rum, or cotton, or tobacco products, those goods that were produced in the Americas would then be sent to Europe to be sold, or to be manufactured into other goods, which could then be shipped either to Africa in exchange for more slaves, or back to the Americas where they would be sold again. So basically you end up with what Mr. Guilford will show you here in just a second, a route that is basically triangular. Three major paths or trade routes involved.
All right, so here's the picture of the trade. You've got the guns going down to Africa where, oh man, it's reversed. So you've got guns going down to Africa where people then can use the guns to kill each other and take each other as hostages. And then you've got slaves going over to the Americas where they will work growing stuff like tobacco and sugar. And then you've got the sugar going over to Europe where the Europeans can basically just eat the sugar and smoke tobacco. So I'm not sure if anybody really benefits from this system.
Though I think we said, even though nobody hugely benefits, it is beneficial to some of the merchants in Africa trading slaves in the short term, but really the long-term benefits favor Europe.
Yeah, it is beneficial to Europe. Maybe not to the individual Europes who get addicted to tobacco or get diabetes or whatever, but it is beneficial to the European kings who get really rich from the trade in sugar and tobacco.
And that'll be what we talk about in part 2 of our video when we discuss absolutism. Bye.
Yeah.